Is this true what I'm hearing?
Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that, right? Now, you might ask yourself, why is it illegal to obtain this in the state of Israel?
Hi there, and welcome to my channel. Jewish has been doing DNA tests, and the results, many of them, they are disappointed by the results, because some of them, in fact, majority of them thought that the result will show that they are 100% Jews, but they are not. Some of them, the result shows that they come from Europe, others showing they come from Africa. So the results they are expecting is not the result that are coming out after doing the test. So I've put more clips so that you can watch, so that you can learn more about this DNA result done by Jews. And I want to give credit to the original creators of these clips. Later, I'll come back for commentary.
You're not allowed to have a DNA test in Israel. There are Chinese Jews. I've met them. There are Vietnamese Jews. I've met them. They're not native to the land of Palestine. There are African Jews. They're not native to the land of Palestine either. There are Ashkenazi Jews who are entirely European in their DNA. That's why you're not allowed to have a DNA test in Israel, because it will reveal that virtually none of them are Semitic, virtually none of them have any ancestral connection to the land. I was viciously assaulted by a manager in the BBC who had recently converted to Judaism. It's fine. I love all religions. But you can't say I've now converted to Judaism and therefore I have a right to go to the land of Palestine and live in the house of someone whose ancestors have been living in it for thousands of years.
And what they found when they analyzed the DNA, and they wrote this in this paper, it's fascinating. They said the Jewish groups descend from a common ancestral population, which was itself admixed with Africans prior to the beginning of the Jewish diaspora that occurred in the 8th century BC. And so what that's saying is, you know, because you hear the skeptics say the Jews were never in Egypt, which means they were never in Africa, right? So where in the world did all this infusion of African DNA come from? This shows that the Hebrew people came out of Egypt with many other Africans that were grafted into the Israelite nation, and they repopulated with them to the point where African contributions to DNA are throughout the Jewish population today.
And ethnicity. If we take a DNA test, Jewish ancestry and our connection to Judea will show up.
You're an Ethiopian Jew. The origin of Ethiopian Jews is literally from a separatist movement from Christian Ethiopians in the 14th century. So if you did a DNA test, you would derive most of your ancestry from Ethiopia and other African nations, not Palestine, not Judea, not anywhere else.
We started off talking about who are the Ashkenazi Jews. Now, I've had people challenge me on YouTube talking about all the different groups that are there, but this is the group that's in charge in Israel. This is the group that is making decisions for everybody else. This is the group that the leaders come from. This is the group that went through the Holocaust and were the original ones to come to Israel before others started trying to come after 1948. Not that that's when the process began, but it is when they came in mass. So, yeah, that's who's in charge. And so what we've been taking a look at, the question that we've been asking is, who are they? Genesis chapter 10, verses 1 through 3, specifically verse 3, declares that the Ashkenaz by name descend from Japheth, or as some say, Japheth. To be a Semite, you have to descend from Shem. And in the table of nations, it is very clear that they do not. They are also mentioned by name in other places in Scripture. Jeremiah 51:27 not only mentions them by name, but locates them already in Europe. They don't descend from Shem, which takes care of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the Exodus, David, Solomon, all of that. And I'm trained to do research, but this stuff isn't hard to find. We have to get past Genesis chapter 10, verse 3. If you can get past that, then we can have a conversation. And so we have DNA evidence.
Does having Jewish DNA determine your Jewish status? Great question. The answer is your Judaism is determined by your mother. If your mom's Jewish, you're Jewish according to traditional Judaism. Now, you could have a very high count of Jewish DNA, and that's awesome. That means you're connected to the Jewish people, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're Jewish. Don't forget, there are people that convert to Judaism and they have zero DNA and they're 100% Jewish.
I guess you could propose a DNA test for everybody who comes here, everybody who lives here.
Abram's descendants are the ones who have the right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean,
Really?
maybe it would be.
What do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained.
State of Israel to obtain this. And if you do obtain it, it's illegal to show it and or talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that, right? Now, you might ask yourself, why is it illegal to obtain this in the state of Israel? Because it proves through your DNA that Jews around the world have no ancestral ties to the land of Israel. But according to Israeli law, the fact that I have Jewish blood gives me more right to somebody's home and land in the land of Palestine than somebody that has been there for hundreds of years. Doesn't make sense.
So hard TV, and you have to take a look at this video of a Palestinian, right? A made-up Palestinian American taking a blood test, genetic testing to see where she's from, and you wouldn't believe what it says on her test. Watch.
Okay, so I just did blood work for genetic testing because I just met with my genetic counselor. I met with her 3 years ago to initially start my genetic counseling to check my genetics and all that stuff for some health stuff. This was before October 7th. It was 3 years ago. It was like in August that her and I met. Okay, and we literally, the cool thing about genetic testing is that they literally sit there and draw out your entire family tree. Now, I'm Palestinian. I'm from Gaza. All right, a lot has happened in the last 3 years, but something to note is that my parents are first cousins, okay? My dad is one of 18 brothers and sisters from the same...
Of course, they're first cousins. And by the way, the Palestinian identity doesn't actually exist. These people looked at themselves as Bilad Hashamis or Egyptians or Ottomans that migrated during the Ottoman Empire, conquering the region. So the term Palestinian doesn't exist. They coined that term. You know, only the Jews identify themselves as Palestinian Jews before Israel was created. The local Arabs of the region looked at themselves as South Syrians or Bilad Hashamis.
Parents. And like I said, my parents are cousins. And so you can imagine this family tree, massive, huge. Also, besides it being confusing, there's a lot that I don't know. Just a lot. Most of my family does not have access to healthcare, okay? And a lot of my family has cancer because they're in area with a lot of radiation from warfare. You get my point. So her and I revisited today, decided to do my blood work, and she shows me my family tree. She's like, just want to go through this and make sure it's right because it's kind of crazy. And then tell me why. At the very bottom of the page, it says Ashkenazi Jewish with a check mark, and it says yes. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, I don't like that.
Of course you don't like that, right? You should go back to Poland. You should go back to Poland, right? They accuse the Jews that are not from the region, even though Ashkenazi Jews are from the region. Oh no, they're not from the region. They should go back to Poland. You should go back to Poland. That's your logic, not mine. It's not our logic. Of course you wouldn't like it. Just proving to you that Jews were here before.
She's like, I know, but it's just region. And here's the thing. She didn't even have to justify it because as a genetic counselor, it does make sense, but I don't like it. Pew-wee. I do not like it. But it's just the thing that it sucks because it's like, when she showed me my family tree, I had to take about 40 people off of there. Like, they died, they were killed, they're missing. We're pretty sure they're dead. And she was just sitting there looking at me like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's just like the grieving process of the last like few years. But yeah, there's probably more. But yeah, we're going to remove about 40 of these people. And then she was like, and most of them are children. I'm like, yep.
So I officially got my Ancestry plus traits test results back, and I figured I would share them with you guys. So this part was no shocker to me. I knew my father was born in Casablanca, Morocco, and then he came here around the time he was 6 or 7. From what I was told when I was younger, they migrated here in like 1960 and they moved to New York. This was kind of the wild card that I didn't really expect. Southeastern England and Northwestern Europe. My father never ever used to tell people that he was born in Morocco, and I think that was because he had a lot of a racial problem and never wanted to be associated with people of other races. Terrible, but true. So he used to tell people that he was French. Now, I guess there is some bit of truth to that, but the majority of his DNA looks like it was from North Africa. The rest of all this stuff, with the exception of Spain, my father used to claim that as well. The rest of all this stuff comes from my mother. And what's crazy about this is my mom's mom was like a Hitler Schmittler worshiper and hated people of Jewish descent. And so the first time my father came to my mother's house to pick her up to take her on a date, my mom's mom slammed the door in his face and was like, absolutely not. My daughter's not going to date any Jewish man. And wouldn't let my mom go on the date. And my mom had to fight tooth and nail to be able to go. And of course, the rest is history. My parents did end up staying together. They became homeless together as like teens. And a couple years later, out I popped from my mom's coochie. So, I mean, I guess this all kind of makes sense a little bit to me. But I don't see anything that indicates German. So why she was such a Hitler worshiper, I don't know. But yeah, so that's my DNA results. Thanks for watching if you stayed this far. I don't have anybody else to share them with, so that's where we are.
8 years ago, I did a DNA test because I was curious what my DNA was. Now, my mom is Jewish, my dad is not. And on the Jewish side of my family, every single person ever has married someone Jewish until my mom. So I knew on my mom's side, it was going to be something like 50% Jewish. I knew that was going to be for a fact. My dad's side, I wasn't really sure what it was going to be because my dad's family has been in America since like the 1600s. So I got my results back, and obviously it was something like 50% Ashkenazi Jewish, but my dad's results were something like 30% French and German, 20% British and Irish, and then a bunch of other random stuff. That was 8 years ago. I just got an email that my results have been updated, and I was like, what? I haven't checked my DNA results in a long time. So I just logged in, and you're not going to believe this. Before I show you these results, I just need to share for anyone that doesn't know, I lived in England for 7 years by myself. I moved there for university. I ended up staying because I loved it. I have no family in England. I just always had this calling, like I needed to go to England. I didn't know anyone there. I ended up making the most amazing friends and people that became like family to me. But yeah, this is my updated result. Okay, so obviously we have the almost 50% Ashkenazi Jewish. But hold on, 45% English? 45% English? Also gotta love the 2% Scottish. You're telling me I lived in England for 7 years and I didn't know I was nearly half English? I was on either student visas or work visas my entire time there. I feel like there's a passport in there somewhere. I feel like I can try to finesse some, I know they're no longer part of the EU, but some sort of British blue passport.
So I've been seeing a lot of Palestinian DNA results recently from 23andMe, and in almost all of them, there has been at least 80% of their DNA from Israel-Palestine, which is a new feature in the 23andMe Ancestry tests. So I thought that I would share my results as somebody who was born and raised Jewish, meaning that both of my parents are Jewish. I am ethnically 100% Jewish. And as you may know, Zionists claim that Jews all originate from Palestine. Therefore, our DNA should say that, our DNA markers should include Israel, Palestine. So let's look at my results and see if that's the case. So before I show my results, I'll just give you a bit of a background. So on one side of my family, I am Ashkenazi Jewish. So on my father's side, his family originates from Eastern Europe. And on my mother's side, they are Mizrahi and Sephardic. So my mom's side is from Morocco and her father's side is from Yemen. So I should have Middle Eastern and North African or Southern European DNA. So it's actually pretty scary how accurate it is. So as you can see, it says 50.6% Ashkenazi Jewish, and it says Eastern Polish and Western Ukrainian Jews, which I had honestly no idea that my ancestry was Ukrainian. From what I know, that my ancestry was Hungarian. But anyways, I am half Ashkenazi Jewish because my father is Ashkenazi Jewish, so it's literally 50.6, which is pretty amazing. Southern European, Spanish and Portuguese makes completely sense. It's only 1.3%, but Sephardic Jews come originally from Spain. So there's tiny bit of Italy, which doesn't really count. And now I'm assuming this is from my mother's side. There is 46.6% Western Asian and North African. So Peninsular Arab, 19.2%. So that is almost a quarter Yemeni, which you see it says right here, Adan government, Yemen, which makes complete sense once again because, like I said, my mother's father's side is from Yemen. Like as far as they can go back, they are from Yemen. So Peninsular Arab, Yemen. Egyptian, honestly, not sure where that comes from. Broadly Arab and Levantine, 7.6%. So that's nothing specific. And lastly, there is North African, Casablanca, Morocco, 6.4%, which is relatively small again because should be 25% Moroccan because my mother's mother is born in Morocco, and as far as they go back, they are from Morocco, but Moroccan Jews generally come from Spain, so there could be something there with the Spanish. Iranian, Mesopotamia 0.4%, don't really count it, and then broadly West Asian and North African is 5% as well. So there it is. As you can see, 0% Palestine and Israel, whereas almost all the DNA tests I've seen of Palestinians have had 85% or more of Palestinian DNA. So there you have it. This is just at least my family, and I have yet to see one Israeli or one Jewish person to have 80% or more of Palestinian or Palestine or Israel DNA. So if you have that, prove me wrong, stitch me, show me this. But so far, only Palestinians have shown to have 80% Palestinian DNA. Yeah, that's my results.
So if you've ever wondered how someone who looks like me, light hair, light eyes, light skin, is Jewish, allow me to explain. Now, I don't really know why I'm explaining this because anybody who's ever questioned my Jewishness was not doing so with good intentions, but if there are people out there who are wondering this and they just don't want to ask, here's my explanation. First, it's important to note that being Jewish is a little confusing because it's an ethnic religion. So you have people who are ethnically, genetically Jewish, and you have people who are Jewish because they practice Judaism, the religion. Wow, I love that chalk drawing. There is definitely overlap, people who are both genetically Jewish and practicing Jews, but it is an and/or situation. Some people are just one or the other. Within ethnic Jews, there are three main subsets. There are some other ones, but these are the big ones. But first you have Ashkenazi Jews whose Jewish DNA has European admixture in it. Then you have Sephardic Jews who also have European admixture, just in a different way, just historically. Then the Mizrahi Jews who have little, if any, European admixture because they never left the region. There has been no European mixing. So Ashkenazi Jews have that European admixture into their Jewish DNA, but they often also have European DNA. Like, even though a majority of my DNA is Jewish, I still have other shit from all over the world playing into my DNA. And that's because not everybody in my family is Jewish, and it's honestly not that common to find people who are 100% ethnically Jewish, because we have been flung all throughout the world with exile and things like that. So even within Ashkenazi genetics, they have found that the vast majority of us all trace back to a small group of, well, men and women. So a small group of men who are Middle Eastern Jewish men. And then there are multiple origin points into this whole European Ashkenazi DNA, but a big one is what they call the four founding mothers. These are women who the maternal mitochondrial DNA has been traced back, that a majority of us, or not a majority, a big chunk of us descend from these same four women who range from European to Middle Eastern origin. So the first reason is that Ashkenazi Jewish DNA has European admixture. The second reason is that many Ashkenazi Jews also have other European genetics mixed into their DNA, so they're not 100% Ashkenazi Jew. The third reason is, think about maybe a large moment in Jewish history in which people who were visibly Jewish did not survive. It's grim, but it really was a genetic bottleneck. I have heard personally from friends and family that lived through this, that people who looked like me, if they were not formally known to the government as racially Hebrew and their communities didn't out them, they had a much higher likelihood of surviving because I don't look Jewish. Whereas your more ethnic looking Jews, your more stereotypical looking Jews, and yes, people who looked more ethnic and Jewish but weren't, had a much higher likelihood of being singled out and taken, killed. So that means people like me had a higher likelihood of surviving, and thus our traits that are stereotypically less Jewish are even more prominent amongst Ashkenazi Jews. And that is the full explanation. Okay, cheers!
DNA results are making so many Jews learn so many things and realize so many things that they had not known them for a very long time. You know, in Israel, DNA results are highly regulated. You cannot just go and say you want to do DNA. So majority of people who are doing these DNA results, some of them are not even in Israel. They're in different countries. Some are in America, some are in Europe. And they have decided to do DNA results so that they can know who are we. Because for a very long time, they have been in a situation that they don't know exactly who they are. They just know they are Jewish, practicing Judaism. Just because you practice Judaism as a Jew does not practice Judaism does not make you a Jew. So majority of them, they don't know exactly 100% who they are. So by doing this DNA test is making them know who they are, and they have been wanting to know who they are, and it's nothing wrong with that. Is good. So some of them have come to know that a certain percent it belong to this region. Some of them are saying, I have 50%, you belong to Europe. Another certain percent, you are in from Africa. A certain percent. Some of them are, we are seeing even Chinese who are Jews. So it's something that making people learn a lot of things. Even people who are not Jews, we are all learning together about this thing, about this DNA results that Jewish people are doing. And it's an eye-opener because for a very long time, I mean, some of the people thought, we are Jews, but because we are told we are Jews, we are from Israel. So definitely we are Jews. As I've said, being a Jew, practicing the religion of Judaism does not make you a Jew. So we are learning a lot of them. Some are very happy to know they are Jews, and some of them are very disappointed. See, even a biggest percent show that they are not Jewish. In fact, they belong to a different part of the world. I've seen a Palestinian woman be very disappointed, learning to know that 50% she's a Jew, and she says she's very disappointed because she never thought she can be a certain percent, even a very small percentage being a Jew. So it's making people learn so many things, and people are learning that sometimes it's not good to hate a person thinking that you can never be them. like now that Palestinian woman learning that she's in a certain percentage being Jew, she's very disappointed because Palestinian and Jewish people, they don't love themselves very well. So I would say I'd like to say thank you so much, and I've also learned a lot about this DNA result for Jews, and I'd like to say thank you so much for watching this video. If you're not subscribed to my channel, kindly subscribe, like the video, and you leave your sweet comment down below of how you see this DNA result done by Jewish people.